Did you know the price you pay for college is often negotiable? Get all the details in this episode.
You have kids, they grow up, and before you know it, it's time to plan for college.
Where do you start?
How much is it going to cost?
Will you qualify for financial aid?
Should you be looking into scholarships?
When will you be able to retire?
What about student loans?
The list of questions is never ending. The good news is, all the answers are right here. Welcome to the Taming the High Cost of College podcast. Here is your host, certified financial planner, Brad Baldridge.
Hello and welcome to Taming the High Cost of College. I'm your host, Brad Baldridge. Today we have a great interview with a father of a college student where we talk all about the appeal process and some of the challenges that he's been going through. He'd like to remain anonymous, so I'm not going to tell you exactly who he is or what college is involved, but there's a lot of great nuggets in this quick interview where we talk about his challenges, and he mentions some things that families need to understand and how to best take advantage of the appeal process as he sees it now that he's been through it once or twice. After the interview in Brad Recommends, I'm going to talk further about the appeal process and talk about how the appeal process works and why families need to really understand it. Now, as far as is the price of college negotiable? The short answer to that question is yes. The longer answer, of course, is it depends on the college and depends on your particular situation. But many families can use the appeal process in order to get a better offer than they had originally received. So it's not negotiation like you would think when you're buying a used car, where you haggle back and forth over the price and eventually you come to some sort of agreement. It's more of a process than that. But the result can be the same, where you end up getting a better deal than what you would have had you not gone through the process. All right, so let's go ahead and jump into the interview. All right, today's interview is with someone who would like to remain anonymous because we've got some interesting things to talk about. So welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yes. So we've obviously talked college planning in the past, and you got an interesting situation. And I thought the story that you kind of passed on to me is something that would be great for my listeners. So I guess I kind of want to focus on, again, you've got a college sophomore now, and you're in the process of doing financial aid for the second time. And that's one I'd like to talk quite a bit about that. But before we get into that, can you kind of lay the groundwork of, approximately, where you're at with your kids and some of the background information?
Sure. I've got two kids. My oldest is a sophomore in college, and the younger one is a senior in high school, who's, as we speak, going through the process of getting applications ready and submitting them. So we're just beginning the process with her.
Right.
With the younger one.
Okay. And then we talked quite a bit about financial aid in the past, and you're a small business owner. So I think that is a key piece of the puzzle as well because of what happened. So tell us a little bit about the process with your sophomore as you were looking to figure out the second year. What happened that story that you sent me?
Yeah. In retrospect, it was kind of an interesting story. My income jumps around a lot, as a lot of small business owners do. Her financial aid, she receives two kinds of aid, merit aid and need-based aid. The need-based aid was based on my 2018 income. In 2019, my income spiked. There was kind of a one-time event. My income went way up. In 2020, had the opposite. My income plummeted and was almost nothing. My concern was that when they saw the 2019 income, that would be held against me and that we would lose all or some of the aid. So I tried to be proactive. I sent an email to the financial aid office explaining that there was this situation where my 2019 income was way up and not representative of what would happen going forward, and also that my 2020 income was much lower. And I wasn't able to send that to an individual in the financial aid office because the way this particular school is structured, they are very careful not to let parents have access to individuals in the financial aid office. So if you contact them, you get the people available for contact, or whoever either answers the phone or checks the group email. They're usually or always perhaps the lowest level people. I think a lot of the people I've spoken with in the financial aid office have been students, although I'm not completely sure about that. So I sent an email to the general email address explaining this and asking them to get back in touch with me if more information would help, or if there were questions or any documentation was needed. And I didn't hear anything from the email, no response or reply of any type. I didn't hear anything until we started to get close to the beginning of the semester, and I got the preliminary tuition bill, which showed that the merit aid base was still in place, but all of the need-based aid was completely gone. We'd lost every penny of it.
So about how much money are we talking about?
About $11,000 a semester.
Mm-hmm.
So, multiply that times however many semesters she has, and it was a lot of money.
Right.
So my wife was actually able to find an email address for me for an actual person who wasn't kind of an entry-level person there. She's part of a Facebook parents group, and apparently the problems we had are very common there. So someone got this person's email address and shared it. So I was able to send an email to an actual person. And I said a couple things. One, I was surprised that someone who had virtually no income in 2020 didn't qualify for any aid. And I thought it was horrible that there was no notice, no explanation, just I'm sent the bill, and the bill shows that all the aid is gone. And, now we're getting close to the semester beginning, and there's no time to respond. I mean, if we can't pay the bill and my child has to find another college, there's no time for that. And I just couldn't believe there was no warning for something like that. So the response I got was actually, I had no expectation of getting, I was just venting as much as anything else, because I didn't think anything good would happen. But I got a very nice, professional, and helpful response. I was told that there's a formal review process, and any dispute over the aid has to go through this process. So apparently my email was not considered, probably not even read, but certainly not considered. Nothing is considered outside of this formal review process. So she sent me a link on how to go through that process, which I did. And the process was just torture. I mean, it was literally torture. The website didn't work. So the information that I had to enter couldn't be entered into the website. So I called several times, and what I was eventually told, it could accept information uploaded. So whatever questions were asked, I had to type the answer out in a Word document, save it, and upload it. So when it asked for my name, I had to type my name and upload my name, along with an explanation of why I was uploading my name instead of typing it in. And then when it asked my address, I had to go through that process and explain why I was uploading my address, and had to go through the whole process like that, which I eventually did. Submitted it. After I submitted, I got an automated response saying they'd received the request for review, and I would be notified if they needed more information. I wasn't notified they needed more information. I did eventually get a notice on the outcome of the appeal, and I hate to make myself sound stupid, but I honestly couldn't tell what the outcome was. And even now, if I go back and look at it, I just can't tell. Their terminology is so different from any terminology I've ever heard or used. If your child qualifies for work study, they call that an award. If you get a loan that you have to pay back, they call that an award. I don't understand how the opportunity to work and earn money is an award, but apparently it is. So they sent me this completely indecipherable notice, and it was so close to when the semester was going to begin, I figured, well, whatever this means, I'm going to know soon enough, even if I don't understand it. So a couple of days later, I got notice that the final tuition bills are in, and I checked, and nothing had changed. Still not one penny of need-based aid after going through all that. So I sent an email again to the person who had been helpful by telling me about the appeal process. And I was as nice and polite as I could be, because I don't need any enemies over there, but it was difficult. And the way it had been explained to me is the appeal process isn't a judgment call. It's based on numbers. And based on what I was told, the way that the calculations work, we shouldn't have lost any financial aid at all. And yet we lost the entirety. So I asked her, first of all, if the situation as I had laid it out to her is such that we shouldn't get any aid, why was I told to appeal this? And if somebody earning almost no money doesn't get financial aid, who is the system for? It just seemed incredible to me. And I was not asking them to reconsider it because I'd already gone through the appeal process. As far as I was concerned, the whole thing was over. I was just trying to vent a little and kind of get it out of my system. So she sent me back an email saying that there had been a clerical error, and my appeal was actually successful and all the aid would be restored. And because of this clerical error, I wasn't notified of that and it's not reflected on the bill, but they said they would go fix that. And if I check back in a few days, the bill would be corrected. And that's what happened. And the aid was restored. So I guess it's a happy ending to a difficult story. And it eventually worked out and the need-based aid was restored, at least for now.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, that's obviously a story I think people need to hear because, a couple of different things, right? Is financial aid offices make mistakes regularly, just like any other office or any other organization that has a lot of moving parts and things get stuck at various places. So it takes some persistence. And the other interesting thing that you mentioned is they try not to, be accessible. They really want you to go into the phone tree and again, it's an efficiency thing at a lot of call centers do this, right? They want you to just talk to whoever answers the phone and tell them your story. The challenge, of course, is then you're always talking to somebody different. And I don't feel like it's as useful in a more complicated situation. If you're just trying to figure out where your package went, that might be one thing, but something as complicated as financial aid, I don't think it's appropriate. But again, what I think, I guess ultimately doesn't matter.
And I knew that was a problem at the very beginning of my journey with them when my child was applying, because I had tried to schedule an appointment at your recommendation. I tried to schedule an appointment with someone in the financial aid office to sit down and kind of share a little of my story and learn how the system works. And they said, oh, good news. You don't need an appointment. Just come in. It's, just walk. And then I realized that if you get just whoever's there when you walk in, you're probably not going to talk to anyone who's worth talking to. And that, that unfortunately is in fact how it works there.
Right. Exactly. So, I do a lot of coaching around this and, I guess the kind of the 4 points that I would highlight out of this would be polite, but persistent. Again, you almost in frustration, you were persistent because you're starting to get frustrated where you just send an email thinking it's over and that one more email, all of a sudden now it's moving again. And that happened. It sounds like it happened twice.
Yeah.
Trying to get it to a decision maker. I think that's another key point is if you can, you found an end around somehow, you got an email address of someone a little higher on the food chain and that helped. And, don't let the red tape stop you. And unfortunately, I think some colleges make the process a little bit challenging on purpose. Again, just to kind of weed out the faint of heart. If you really need the money, you're more likely to put up with the challenges. If it gets to the situation where it's like, oh, it's just easier to write the check and be done. I just can't take this anymore. Well, that's a fine outcome for the college as far as they're concerned, right? If you just go ahead and pay the bill, then that's good. Do you have any other thoughts as far as the process? Now, obviously, you're a sophomore, so now you've got a little experience under your belt. Is it changing, or do you think you're going to do anything differently because with your high school senior because of what you've learned so far?
Probably. I don't know if there are any specific logistical changes I'll make, but one thing that I'm going to try and kind of keep straight in my head is that there's a system in place here. It's a process and there are procedures, and it's not about common sense. It's about working within established guidelines that sometimes make a lot of sense and sometimes don't, but it doesn't matter when it makes sense and when it doesn't. There are rules and they're going to work within those rules. And also remembering that I'm not dealing with people, even though there may be people who answer the phones and maybe people who reply to emails. I'm not really dealing with those people. I'm dealing with the system that's in place and connecting with someone on a one-on-one basis and having them understand the situation. That's not part of this. What's part of this is the calculations and the procedures, and that's really all there. It's like dealing with an automated process, really. And I don't know if it's like that at every school, but at this school, I might as well be dealing with a robot. It would be no different than how it is.
Right, for sure. Yeah, and I think that's, again, one of the challenges that we're dealing with when it comes to the appeal process, as an example, is they want to get their information a certain way. You have to put it into a website or you have to submit documentation as they see fit, how they want to do it. And then, of course, they have the frustration in your case where the system seems to be broken or it doesn't even allow you to enter data, so, and of course, a lot of times it's whoever is running the website versus the financial aid office may not be communicating well and stuff gets broken and maybe it doesn't get fixed in a timely manner. Any other pearls of wisdom that you've come across as part of this process that you'd like to share?
One thing that I think you had kind of explained this at the beginning of the process, but I feel like after having gone through it, I really understand why it's so important now, is before it starts to just proactively kind of learn as much about the way all this works and the way the system works as possible, because the schools have an enormous information advantage. They do this. I mean, this is their job. They do it year round, year after year, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of students. And for the families and the parents, this is either new to us, or maybe we've gone through it with one or two or a couple of children, but none of us know the way this works as well as the colleges. And maybe this experience has made me cynical, but it seems to me that they really kind of press that advantage. So my thinking with my next child, and what I would encourage everyone else to do, is to learn the system and learn the process as well as you possibly can. Not that you can make it an even level playing field, because the colleges are always going to know more than the parents, but just not to be completely ignorant in the way that it works. And maybe that's the best path to getting a fair shake.
Right, absolutely. And I encourage families to do that on a regular basis, of at least understand, and I think we talked about this as well, is that award that they're giving you merit-based or need-based? Because it makes a difference, right? The merit piece of the puzzle that you received, it stayed. But what they considered need-based went away when they felt you no longer had a need. All right, well, I really do appreciate you sharing this. I think it's kind of a lesson learned, and I think people need to hear a little bit about it.
Well, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thanks. All right, that was a great interview. Don't go away, because next in Brad Recommends, we're going to get into further detail and talk more about the appeal process and why everybody needs to understand how it works. If you have kids in college or even kids in high school, it's important that you understand the appeal process so that you can leverage it and take advantage of it where you need to.
The latest tips, tricks, and tools you can use today. This is Brad Recommends on Taming the High Cost of College.
Today I'm recommending that you use the appeal process to your advantage. Now, most colleges have some form of appeal process in order for families to get their financial aid corrected and perhaps increase their scholarships and work with the college in order to solve the financial issues that they might be coming across. Now, an important tip here is if you have children that are still in high school and you're just starting the process, there's things you can be doing starting with your very first visit to increase your odds of having a successful appeal and having a better understanding of how this all works. Another important thing to realize is this appeal process is similar to a negotiation in that, again, you're trying to adjust the financial picture. And again, if you're the family, of course, you're trying to bring your costs down. And you're working with the college to see what they can do to help you. But you're not negotiating like you would if you were buying a used car. You're not going to say something like, well, I'll give you $12,000 per semester, and that's my final offer. That's not really the type of negotiation that's going on here. It's more of a process where you go to the college and ask for their help. Again, the aid doesn't seem enough for us to make this work, or this aid doesn't seem right. I think maybe there was an error on our financial aid forms where you included things you shouldn't have, or that type of process. So what are the common things that you can appeal? Well, there's three main categories, I think, that would apply in the appeal process. One is correcting errors, as we've mentioned. Again, maybe you filled out your financial aid forms wrong, or you feel like the college may have done something in error. Another big area would be change in circumstance. In other words, we filled out the forms and we did it accurately, but our life has changed since the tax return in question, as an example. Yes, my income in 2021 was really good, but in 2022 and 2023, it's going to be much worse. I lost that job. Or we're going through a divorce, so our circumstances will be substantially different. Or the business I once had has gone bankrupt or was destroyed in the hurricane, or whatever it might be. And then the last area would be competitive offers. In other words, well, other colleges are giving us a better scholarship or whatever it might be, but we'd really like to attend your institution, so is there a way that you can meet the competition or get closer anyway, or is this the best that you can do? That, of course, is getting the closest to a true negotiation. Now, it's important to realize that colleges can be very different as far as how their process works and how willing they are to adjust things. Some colleges are very strict and will only look at certain situations, and other colleges will consider just about anything and everything. And some colleges are a little more wheel and deal, where they will look at competitive offers and increase their offers to match. Or they may say something like, well, this is what we can do now. If it's not enough, let us know. A little more where they are trying to find a price that you'll be happy with and convince you to come. Now, the 4 key points to be successful, as I mentioned during the interview, you need to be persistent. I think in a lot of cases, the decision makers are very busy and it's hard to get their attention, and some persistence and going back and keeping at it helps a ton. As I mentioned, you also want to try and find a decision maker. So you're dealing directly with a person, and ideally you can go back to the same person and send them the information they need and ask them what else is needed and that type of thing, versus just going through a generic website or whatever it might be. You also want to follow the system. If they want you to fill out a form or write a letter, go ahead and do that. If they say send important documents or supplemental documents, do that. If they say do not send documents, then don't. Do as they ask, but then keep going back and asking, where are we at in the process, and get an update. And then finally, understand that it may be a little bit difficult on purpose. Just like stores, some stores make it very difficult to return anything that you purchase, and some stores make it very easy. There's differences as well in the colleges as far as how difficult it might be and how receptive they are to even considering changing things. Now, as I mentioned early on, if you're just starting the college search process, I think understanding this appeal process can help you lay the groundwork for a successful appeal. In the interview, again, we talked a little bit about how it was hard to schedule an appointment early on and talk to somebody in financial aid, and how he was lucky that he found an email address of an actual person so that he was able to actually get some results. So how you can use this, if you're just starting to do your visits, of course, is to understand that this is in the future potentially. And if you meet someone in financial aid, you need to grab their card, get their email, and chat with them a little bit and kind of get their permission and find out, can I contact you later on if I have questions? And if they say, well, this is the process or whatever it might be, write it down and remember what they said. And again, once you visited 5 or 6 schools, it'll get confusing as to who you talked to and who you didn't. So take good notes as well. Also, spend some time on the website of each of the colleges and ask questions on your visit about the appeal process. In other words, if you go to their website and they have very clear instructions on how the appeal process might work, then you can ask questions about that web page and gather even more information. If there's no information at all about how the appeal process works, that might be a question you want to ask before you apply to get a feel for what you might be up against. So again, it's just another piece of the puzzle that many families may or may not, base their decisions on. But if you can keep good notes and keep track of all the people you talk to and that type of thing, it'll give you a big leg up later on in the process when you need to go back and try and figure out, what went wrong, or if you need help adjusting a form, or again, if your life circumstances have changed and you need someone to help you through the process of, well, now that we're lost our business or we're unemployed, how do we go about correcting our financial aid and that type of thing? All right, that's all we have for today. Hopefully you've learned a ton and you can apply this to your life and make your financial aid situation turn out a little bit better. As always, we have show notes available at tamingthehighcostofcollege.com/135 for this particular episode, and there will be links to all the things that we've talked about in this episode as well. If you're enjoying this podcast, we would appreciate it if you gave us a review and wherever you downloaded your podcast, or share it with friends and family, or talk to your school counselor and let them know that we're out there. Again, because many families just don't know we exist, and they don't know that the help is out there. That's all for this week. We will see you next week.
Thank you for listening to the Taming the High Cost of College podcast. Now it's time for you to take action. Head to tamingthehighcostofcollege.com for show notes, bonus content, and to leave feedback for Brad. The next step on your college journey starts now.
Brad Baldridge is a registered representative of Cambridge Investment Research and an investment advisor representative of Cambridge Investment Research Advisors, a registered investment advisor. Securities are offered through Cambridge Investment Research Incorporated, a broker-dealer and member of FINRA and SIPC. Brad owns two companies, Baldridge Wealth Management and Baldridge College Solutions. The Baldridge companies are not affiliated with Cambridge Investment Research.